My name is Leo, and I'm the founder of Xtatic. We're an educational technology company dedicated to providing premium services to our educational partners. Our offerings include expanded learning programs, CRM system for teaching and learning, and cutting-edge Xtatic AI services. Here is the agenda for today's seminar. We have 5 minutes of intro about Xtatic, about today's seminar, 70 minutes for the main presentations, and the rest of the time is reserved to answer any questions you may have. At Xtatic, we have a meaningful mission: widening access to exceptional educational resources for every student and family. Today's seminar aligns perfectly with this mission as we aim to provide you with invaluable insights into the college application process, with a particular focus on computer science and technology. Now, I would like to introduce our 2 esteemed speakers for today. Mr. Chen is a close friend of mine with more than 20 years of experience in college counseling. He is also a former admission officer at the UC Berkeley. As an insider, he will guide you through the college application process with a specific focus on computer science majors. Dr. Al-Sadi is a lead research software engineer with experience in academic and AI domains. He will share his expertise in AI, research, and industrial knowledge, helping you to better understand the computer science industry as well as how you can prepare early for this competitive field. Now, without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Chen as he kicks off today's main event.
Hi, everyone. My name is Harrison Chang. I am currently Director of College Counseling at Stratford Preparatory. It's a private school here in the South Bay. I've been doing private counseling for about 20 years at this point, including 5 years working at UC Berkeley's full-time MBA office, and also doing a tech startup here in the Bay Area. I've done my undergraduate in biology at UC Berkeley. I was a scholarship recipient there, then had a full ride scholarship to my MBA as the youngest one in my class at UC San Diego, then UCLA for college counseling, Carnegie Mellon for master's in software management, and currently a doctoral program in education. So I've been through a lot of different areas, covered a lot of different things. And today we're going to be just talking about some of the admissions processes. What are the things that we're looking for in that admissions process so you can understand, what are the things that you should be working on over your time in high school to best prepare yourself for admission to a top school. Go ahead and go to the next slide. I'd like to start off here with this is UC Berkeley's undergraduate business program. This is how we made our admissions decision. 50% of our decision was based off your academics. Now that covers everything from your GPA to test scores to how many classes you're taking and all sorts of factors like that. Academics is the largest single part of the pie. The next largest part is the essays. That's about 30%. That is really where you get to decide what you want to showcase about what you've done and achieved throughout high school. We'll come back to that in a little bit. The next 15% are going to be your clubs, your sports, your leadership roles, internships, volunteer hours. It's everything that you do other than academics, other than grades in school and things like that. And then the last 5% were the miscellaneous factors, the things you couldn't control, like your low income, your disabled, medical conditions. It's all the things you have no control over. But let's go back to those essays because no one wrote their college apps about how much they like writing essays. You're going to write those essays talking about your academics, your extracurriculars, your special circumstance. And depending on what you choose to write about, it takes that 30% and it adds it to one of those other 3 areas, right? Now, most students will typically write one essay about, hey, what do I want to do in the future? Doctor, lawyer, engineer, right? And that tends to be your academic essay. Your other essays typically all talk about your clubs and sports and all the other things that you tend to be doing in high school. And so you end up with the second chart here, which is a 60-40 split. This is what most students typically have when they're applying to college, which means that academics, perfect 4.0 GPA, 1600 SAT score, you have a D, you have 60% of all the points possible. We must also target those extracurriculars to get the other 40% in order to be a well-rounded and competitive student. So for schools that are only accepting like top 5% of applicants, you need to get about 95% of all the points. Now, out of which categories you get it doesn't really matter as long as you earn enough points, to kind of cross that threshold. Okay, so let's take a look at the next slide real quick. We're going to go to UC San Diego just to show you a second system. This is an older system. They don't use this as is anymore, but this is still the easiest way to think about the process, for those that don't work into the space on a day-to-day basis. You're going to notice here that we've color-coded this into 3 different areas. They represent at the top academics, followed by extracurriculars, followed by special circumstances. And hopefully that sounds familiar because we just talked about it, right? It's the same 3 areas. All colleges basically break down their admissions process into this. right? And you can see on this chart how much everything is worth, which gives you an idea of how valuable each of those sections are, right? So starting at the very top, you've got your GPA, pretty self-explanatory, get good grades. Sure, that's not a surprise to anyone here, right? You'll also notice that is the largest number on the page other than the total at the bottom. And that's because this is long-term success. This is 3 years of your life. You know, when you take the SATs, those are like 3 hours of your life. It's, not really apples to apples here, right? So long-term success is the single most important factor, particularly for UC schools these days, where they don't look at the SATs anymore. The GPA is now more important than ever, right? It's now absorbed a lot of the value because without the next section, what's going to end up happening is those 3,200 points, those just get split up and divvied up between the other sections in the academic area. So GPA now, single greatest, most important factor by far. Now, for the schools that do take the SAT, ACT, these are basically private schools and a lot of, basically we'll call them Republican-controlled states versus the Democrat-controlled states, which don't take the SAT, right? Unofficially, they've essentially said all those test optional schools are saying, hey, if you're a rich white Asian family, we expect that you've taken the SAT at this point. You will also have seen in the news Harvard, MIT, Caltech, Dartmouth, all of these schools are starting to reinstate the SAT requirement. That list is likely to continue to grow over time. So you will see that the top schools will likely be reinstating those exams, and you will likely need to be taking this test if you have not already done so. Next section is A through G courses beyond the minimum. What this is asking is basically how many classes are you taking? So I like to tell people I went to public school myself. I did 6 classes a year in public school, and my mom dragged me kicking and screaming 8 a.m. on Saturday mornings to go to Chinese school. I had to do 7 classes. And despite hating to wake up on Saturdays, at the end of the day, it was extra credit for me, right? Extra classes means extra points. The more classes you take, the more points you get. Whether those courses are online, in person, on the weekend, evenings, summers, it doesn't really matter when, where, or how you do that. Every extra class is going to be worth extra points. So the more classes you take, the better. Now, key thing here is it's also a double-edged sword, right? You're not just going to sign up for 15 more classes today because you couldn't possibly have the time to go and study for all of those exams, right? And so essentially, what you want to be doing is making sure that you're able to balance that workload, right? However many you can take is what you should be able to handle, and you don't want to overload yourself. Outside of that, we want to be looking at ELC. That's going to be, are you in the top 9% of your graduating class? So I have a lot of people that are always asking, should I switch to a lower school? It's easier for me to do well, get good grades in that school. But there's a downside to that, right? Which is you're probably, not going to have strong friends who are working really hard. If they're not studying hard, you're not going to be working hard too. So it causes some other problems when you're switching between schools like that. All right, next section down is leadership. Leadership is 1/3 job title, and such as president, vice president, secretary. 2/3, what did you do with that job title? So if you are the leader of a club and you also, or sorry, if you're managing a club and you're the treasurer of the club and you fundraise like $5, then did you really make much of an impact in your job as a leader, right? So we want to think about what is the measurable impact that you have achieved. Is there some way for you to quantify that impact and share that with the colleges? Okay. Next section down is going to be special talents, awards, and achievements. So this is basically asking what kind of trophies are you earning? So I don't really care what you want to study and what you want to work on, what clubs you want to join, what sports you want to play. Doesn't matter. As long as you are the best at whatever ones you've committed yourself to, that really is going to be the most important thing. So it's about demonstrating success. It's about depth of experience versus quantity and breadth of experience. After that, we've got volunteer hours. Very self-explanatory volunteer hours. What we're typically looking for is about 100 hours per year, grades 9, 10, and 11. So you start senior year when you're applying for colleges, you got 300 hours done and ready to go. Now, most people start asking, why do you need so many hours? Like a lot of schools only require 40 hours to graduate. And while you might only need 40 to graduate, that's the bare minimum to graduate. So it's a C minus. C minus is the minimum you need to graduate, right? And you're not getting into good schools with a C minus. So if you want to show A-level work, we should be looking at about 100 hours per year. After that, you've got academic preparation. How are you going about trying to demonstrate your interest in what you want to study in the future. So if you want to be a doctor, are you volunteering in a hospital? You want to be an engineer, are you doing robotics? Are you doing activities, clubs, classes that are related to your intended field of study, right? After that, we've got first generation college student. Are you the first in your family to go to college? Most of you, probably not. Go ahead and blame mom and dad. We've also got educational environment. Where do you go to school? Someone that goes to school that is very difficult, very challenging with, all AP classes, highly academically rigorous, you're going to get some bonus points there. But to get the full 300 bonus points, we have to go to school that is absolutely terrible with drugs, guns, gangs, metal detectors. If you can survive going to school for 4 years, you'll earn yourself some additional bonus points. After that, we've got low income status, obviously mostly out of your control. So go ahead and again, blame mom and dad for that one. But low income status, the lower your income, the higher credit you would get essentially. And then lastly, special circumstance. That's just anything else that will affect your chances of admission. So anything that prevents you from having a normal high school experience, like you've got medical disabilities, you got a baby brother, you got to babysit after school, which is why you can't play after school sports, a whole sorts of different activities. Okay. Let's go to the next slide real quick. There are two new sections that are really not included in the original form, but these days, if we were to update this chart, should be added. One is creativity. This is like I think of as job security. This is what AI is not so great at doing yet. But creativity can be demonstrated through art, music, dance, problem solving, creative writing. A lot of ways we can showcase creativity. Then there's diversity. Diversity is one of those nice big buzzwords everyone likes to talk about. What we're looking for here is how are you different than other people? Now, most commonly people think of this as ethnic diversity, and obviously you can't change the color of your skin, but we want to start thinking about those doing things that are different. So I have a lot of students, a lot of girls who take dance classes. And I see all the Indian girls taking Indian traditional dancing, Chinese girls taking Chinese traditional dancing. Switch, right? Do anything that is different than your own culture. If you're learning your own culture, there's no diversity there. That's just you learning who you are yourself, right? What we're looking for is how are you opening yourself and exposing yourself to other ideas, other cultures, and showing me that you're open-minded. Now, diversity could also be thought of as gender diversity. That's boys taking dance classes, right? Or girls doing computer science and engineering. That would be gender diversity. You have socioeconomic diversity, helping the poor, helping the homeless, tutoring low income kids. That one, I just want to caution, is the most popular answer to the diversity question and therefore by far the least valuable. So if you do end up choosing that option, you need to make sure that your other areas are 10 times stronger to make up for a weaker diversity response. All right, next slide, please. So what we want to look at ultimately is what do you have control over? What do we not have control over? There's some of these things that are just set in stone and there is nothing you can do about it. So let's not waste our time trying to do that. Go to the next slide. Let's just focus on what we can control. This is what you can control. And you can see how important each of those sections are. And this is the version with the SATs. So this is what most private schools are going to be looking at. But you can still see GPA, SAT scores, grand majority of the points here once we're looking at what we can control. All right. Let's go to the next section, please. All right, this is without the SAT. You'll notice that once we've removed the SAT section, it shifts the weight quite a bit, right? You're going to notice that the GPA picks up a lot more credit, but so does the other section, A through G courses beyond the minimum, which again is asking how many classes are you taking? So they are looking for students who are challenging themselves and doing more than the bare minimum number of courses, and gives you a rough idea. Now, each of those 6% sections, they may seem kind of small, but when there's 6 of them, that still adds up to like 35%, 36%. So that's a very significant amount as well. So you do need to make sure that we are targeting all of those because we're not going to be competitive again at those very high-end schools. Next slide, please. So what do you need to be taking in your 4 years in order to be eligible? There's the bare minimum requirements when, again, it comes to graduating high school and applying to college, and that's what you see on your screen here. That is 4 years of English, 3 years of math, though it's highly recommended that you do 4. And by highly recommended, I mean, if you don't do 4, you're probably not getting into any good school. Lab sciences, it's typically recommended to do 2, and that by 2, I mean 2 different sciences. So there are 3 science areas: biology, chemistry, physics. You need to take lab classes in at least 2 different ones. So you can't just do like physics, AP Physics, AP Physics C, AP Physics 2. Like, you've got to actually take outside that range. You must do at least 2 different areas, preferably all 3, but not required for that. Next, social sciences. You need 2 years minimum to graduate for most universities to be admitted. That's typically U.S. history, world history, and government course. Okay. After that, foreign language is a requirement. You need to go to the highest level that you can achieve, typically as quickly as possible. So for college admissions purposes, level 2 is the minimum level that you need to achieve to be eligible to apply to most colleges. So that could be Spanish 2, French 2, German 2, Italian 2. Doesn't matter which language you pick. Now, the key thing that we're looking for, though, is level. So Italian 1, German 1, French 1, Chinese 1. You can spend 4 years taking those 4 classes. That will count as 1 year of foreign language still, because you only reach level 1 as the highest level. Alternatively, if you're like me taking those Chinese school classes on Saturdays, I started at Chinese 1, hoping to do 4 years of easy Chinese classes. Teacher talked to me on the first day, kicked me out, and moved me to Chinese 4. Right. And after 1 year, I earned 4 years of credit because, again, they're looking at level, not years in a classroom. So, key thing there is level. And unless you really feel like this language is important for your future career path, which for most, CS engineering, it's probably not going to be the language, that's really important for you. I wouldn't waste too much time more than you need to. I do want to put out there, though, that there are schools, roughly 0.1% of colleges would like to see level 4, level 5 foreign language. Okay. But it's a very, very small subset. It is a lot of the Ivy League, though, and top end schools. So if you are thinking about those schools, you do want to try to get to at least level 4 before you stop. Okay. Next slide, please. So here's a potential 4-year plan for your students, in terms of taking 6 courses, what that would look like for 4 years, English, math, and all that. So what we're looking for is APs here. Typically, if we're aiming for a tier 1 school like an Ivy League or Berkeley, LA, places like that, you're looking at 7 to 9 APs over the course of all 4 years of high school combined. Below 7, and I'll be honest, I don't think you have a shot of getting it. Above 9 has diminishing value of return, right? A recent survey, Wall Street Journal article showed that the average for students admitted to Ivy League schools was 10.4 APs over all 4 years. All right. So you don't really need to go. I hear stories of people taking like 17. You absolutely do not need 17 APs, right? Now, I also want to remind you that when we're talking about those averages, we're talking about classes taken. I am not talking about AP exams. Those are 2 very, very different things. We don't really care about your AP exam score. I care if you took the AP class at school. So don't try to skip this and self-study at home. That is the greatest waste of time possible right now. All right, next slide, please. So in terms of your extracurriculars, what we want to be looking for right now is diversifying and building this kind of like a pyramid base like you see. The goal in freshman year is to go out, try new things, do as much as you can, explore, find what you like, find what you're passionate about, find what you're good at, and then each year we start to narrow it down. Things that you're not winning at, things that you don't get leadership roles for, things that you don't enjoy, we start to cut out and we start to narrow it down so that by the time you get to your senior year, you're left with these 3 to 5 things that you've been working on for all 4 years of high school. So you've got long-term, commitment to them, and you've got success, you've got leadership, you've got all those things show the colleges when you apply, right? Because ultimately, only 3 or 5 of these are going to make it into your college essays. The rest of them, they won't really see, and that's not really going to mean much to them at that point. So the goal is to just focus on a few really strong activities. Next slide, please. So essays, writing your essays for those of you who are there, that might be, a little bit far ahead for some of you, but what we're ultimately looking for are going to be a few different topic ideas. I don't want everything to be about computer science and engineering. Some of your activities needs to be about something else. You got to show me that you've got different sides to your personality, and it's not just work, 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 work all the time with nothing else to show for it. So some things that you might want to consider doing is, in addition to like 2 academic activities, is 1 sport, 1 artistic activity like singing, dancing, playing an instrument, drawing, visual art, or volunteer work, right? This gives us a nice, well-rounded applicant profile. You typically don't want to do like 2 sports. People that do 2 or 3 sports, that's a huge waste of your time because they take so many hours and it doesn't add a lot back. So make sure you're getting a mix of activities that will really help check off all the boxes for you. Now, as I said, we're looking for 3 to 5, and the key thing is, because we go back to that earlier slide I showed you, there are 3 to 5 essays for most schools when you apply to them. Every essay needs a topic. That's why we need 3 to 5 things to write those essays about, and that's what we're going to focus on a little bit here. Next slide, please. So when it comes to computer science applicants and profiles, there are certain things that you'd want to see in those applications. And this differs a little bit from students who want to do business or medicine or something else. Ultimately, because, when we talk about medicine, for instance, I always like to tell people there's a lot of laws in the United States, right? About treating patients, who's able to go into the room and take people's blood pressure and temperature. And the US won't let students go and do that. You're just not allowed to, right? For safety reasons. Now, for computer science, though, you could go and create an app and post on the App Store and sell that app to people. You can create a video game right now. There's no law that is stopping you from doing that, like there is for the students who want to do medicine. Because of that, the expectations are a little different. We are now looking that you have more experience within that industry, whether that is, building your own apps, as I said, developing a technology, there's a whole host of things that you can be doing. But what we're ultimately looking really for here is going to be industry experience of some kind. So, have you actually done work at a company? Have you interned? Have you, done projects at companies and things like that? That's typically going to be a pretty important part that we're looking for, right? Now, the other thing that you need to kind of consider, though, is that what is legal? It also varies a little bit, right? In the sense that internships, there are both paid and unpaid interns. Now, from a legal perspective, companies cannot hire unpaid workers to do a job that they would normally pay someone to do, right? Because the government doesn't like when the jobs market is down because, hey, all of these normally paid spots have gone to free interns right now. That makes the economy look really bad. So basically what they say is, hey, if you're an unpaid intern, you're only legally allowed to do things that we wouldn't normally hire someone to do. So you can go get coffee, you can make lunch orders, you can, make photocopies, you can do all of these kind of useless jobs around the office, and that doesn't help you very much. So unpaid internships at companies are basically all a waste of time. Then you've got your paid internships. Now, if you're lucky enough to secure one of those, that is usually worth it. The company is willing to give you money to do something, that better be pretty important, or that company's not giving you money for it, right? That means you're actually doing something meaningful, something important. The issue with that is finding paid internships is going to be a lot more difficult, right? Because in those cases, they're not really going to hire a high school student if I can hire a college kid first, right? Why would I want someone that is significantly less experienced? I'm going to get the college kid when they're back in town for the summer, especially if you're saying, I'm only going to intern in the summer. When do you think everyone else is coming back, right? So they're all going to be back in town during that time of year. So we want to make sure that, if you do want to do internships at a company, you might want to consider doing it during the school year when all the college kids are gone in college and not around to work with the companies, right? Alternatively, we've got some summer programs as well, summer programs that expose you to a work industry experience. But it's going to be a little different. Essentially, you're going to be paying them to get the training, to get that experience. And that's essentially the third way that we can get that exposure. But getting that kind of exposure, again, is something that we need through one of those methods, whichever one is realistically going to work for you the best. Most people who have a paid internship at a company, it's because mom and dad got them that internship. All right. I don't really see any programs out there designed to hire high school kids. I'm sorry, they don't exist, right? So unless you've got a connection, you might want to start considering some other options there. All right. Now, besides that, you want to make sure you're taking the right courses throughout high school. AP Computer Science is what most people think is the most important class, and they are surprised. No, it's not. If you're interested in CS and engineering, when it comes from an admissions perspective, physics is the single most important class that you take. So typically that's honors physics, AP Physics 1, 2, AP Physics C. we want to see that you're pushing and challenging yourselves on the physics side. We're also looking for advanced math courses. Basically, if your school has a advanced math track, I expect that you've taken that class, right? So any advanced math class, if they offer it, you better be in that class. All right. After that math class, then we're starting to look at computer science classes, whether that's APCSA, CS Principles, or any other advanced computer science course that you've got. That typically be the third most important class. All right. After that, you should be looking at doing some clubs, some activities. So you might want to consider robotics clubs. Like robotics is very useful because it checks off a lot of good boxes for us, right? It allows us to answer a lot of different questions. So robotics is pretty solid. Hackathon coding clubs are also going to be important. Key thing with hackathons and the difference is though that they are entering competitions in order to win awards. You need to be getting some kind of awards. Robotics has competitions. They win awards. Like a coding club, if you guys just meet at lunch and you talk about, hey, I really love coding, I enjoy it, that doesn't add any value, right? If you're not entering competition, you're not demonstrating your skills, your ability, that's a waste of your time, right? So we want to make sure that you're looking for clubs where you are actively developing like a product that you can sell or market, or you're winning awards. You got to have something to show for it that you're actually being successful at this organization. Okay, next slide, please. So some of the UC essay questions, there are currently 8 questions of which you choose 4 of them to answer. And these are going to sound pretty familiar, but your first one is about leadership. And we talked earlier about leadership being one of those key items that they're looking for on that point sheet. We've got the second one, which is what is your greatest talent or skill? This one's basically asking, again, what trophies are you winning? So again, you could pick a sport, you can pick an art, or you can pick coding, right? And so it could be anything that you want, but remember, we need to have awards and trophies to show for that. Then you've got creativity. So creativity could be described in a lot of ways, as we talked about earlier, but how are you demonstrating that creativity? Then we've got an academic question, right? Which is, what do you want to study? How are you pushing and finding ways to explore that passion of yours? Next slide, please. All right. Now, number 5 is one that I see a lot of people answer and they really shouldn't, right? Because if you look at the last sentence of that, it says, how has this challenge affected your academic achievement? What this is asking is basically how or why did you get bad grades, right? Because this is affecting your academic achievement. It's like, how are you not doing well in school? So if you got straight A's or you got mostly A's, a couple B's, you cannot answer this question because nothing has affected your academic achievement here, right? And this is one where people like to say, oh, what's the greatest challenge? My greatest challenge was finding the solution to this robot problem. All right, but it didn't affect your grades. So you're missing half the question. You're never going to score higher than 50% on that essay. Right. Number 6, we talked about community service. Again, another one of those key areas. Number 7, what's an academic subject that inspires you? Again, this is what do you want to study in the future? And then number 8 is a freebie open-ended question. So what we see here with these 8 questions is that 6 of these areas really reflect those items we brought up earlier with leadership, academics, creativity, volunteer work, diversity and academic achievement, right? And so ultimately these essays kind of all pivot back towards those original 6 areas. Next slide, please. All right, sorry, keep going.
That's the last slide.
Oh, that's the last slide. My bad. So essentially what we want to make sure that we're planning for though is we want everything to kind of tie back into those core 6 areas, right? Again, that's leadership, awards, volunteering, academics, like academic interest and demonstration of interest, creativity, and diversity. Those 6 areas represent, from my experience, the grand majority of all the essays that you will face, right? And so ultimately, for those of you who are, however far you are from your college applications, you have until the beginning of senior year to come up with an answer to all 6 questions. All right. And if you don't have an answer to it, you're not getting into that school that asked that question, right? And I will tell you from my experience right now, the one that people struggle with the most right now is typically going to be diversity. Diversity is just really hard. And put it very bluntly, if you're an Asian boy going for CS engineering, that is like all the Asian boys, right? That is like 95% of the students I work with. And because of that, you're putting yourself in a very tough situation. You need to make sure that you get some diversity. So I always tell them, you got to go find something. And most people, they want to do the socioeconomic one. Well, if you're an Asian boy doing engineering and you choose socioeconomic, that is now 99.9% of Asian boys, kind of, right? And so you're digging a hole even deeper for yourself right now. It's just making it harder for yourself to climb it. We need to go out and seek some of those different ideas and experiences. You got to differentiate yourself. If all of your friends are doing the same exact thing as you, you're probably not getting a whole lot of diversity, right? Your best bet, probably trying to go and build some kind of program, some app, something that we can show for it, something that we can showcase, working on that passion project idea, something that's going to help you stand out of the crowd a little bit in those future engagements, right? I would also encourage you to go and explore, take some, spend your summers doing some of those academic programs, finding ways to find unique experiences, things that, again, other people can't copy and mimic, and finding ways to get that industry experience is going to be important as well. All right.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Chen, for your invaluable insights into the college application for computer science major and highlighting how true differentiation comes from unique and impactful extracurricular activities. So what kind of activities should we be looking for? Let's take a look at the market. So from the supply side, as we navigate the ongoing AI revolution, the landscape of education and career opportunities is transforming. Computer science is no longer confined to a single industry. It has become the driving force behind nearly every sector, with over 50% of high school students nationwide aspiring to careers in computer science, and even more here in the Silicon Valley. The competition is intense. As we can see from the chart, people who are interested in applying computer science has increased nearly 6 times since 2021. In this environment, traditional markers of academic excellencies, such as 4.0 GPAs, perfect SAT scores, or multiple AP courses, are no longer enough to set students apart. These achievements have become baseline expectations for higher achievers, creating a need for something more. Oops. On the demand side, colleges and employers alike are seeking candidates who go beyond academic basics. They are looking for individuals who demonstrate initiatives, creativity, and ability to apply their knowledge to real-world challenges. We also have unpredictable layoffs, rapid tech shifts like the rising of AGI, creating both challenges and opportunities. So how and where can students gain necessary skills and qualities to stand out from this competitive and uncertain field? If you have the same question, we would encourage you to join our computer science bootcamp this summer at Princeton University. We have worked with experts in college counseling, Dr. Chen, and AI technology, Dr. Xtatic, and created this perfect program to answer your question. Unlike traditional programs focused on mastering a specific programming language or skill, our bootcamp dives deeper. We tackle the root of problem solving to prepare students responding to this fast-changing world. So our philosophies for the programs as follow. So first, we have champion mindset. So we teach students to ask the right question and think strategically, empower them to become the best at what they do. Methodologies over skills. Instead of teaching isolated skills, we focus on the logic and framework needed to solve any questions. This equips students with adaptable tactics to solve any challenges. Last but not the least, sparking interest. We make learning meaningful and engaging, ensuring that students' personal passions are the core part of this experience. We believe that interest and curiosities are the secret weapons for thriving in this AI era. So to ensure delivery, we choose Princeton University as the location for this transformative program because of its world-class researchers who excel in asking the right question and driving meaningful innovation. So our instructors and TAs are selected from Princeton PhD and postdoctoral researchers, ensuring that the students learn only from the tip of the pyramid. Through lectures, hands-on labs, and direct mentorships, students not only gain technical skills, but also adopt the mindset, habits, and behaviors of these researchers. They learn how to approach challenges systematically, develop innovative projects from the ground up, and build a champion mindset. To make the experience even more compelling, we integrate cutting-edge skills into real-world business cases, showing students how computer science impacts nearly every field and resonates with their interests. So allow me to emphasize the interest here. So in the traditional industrial age, productivity often overshadows personal interest and fun. But in the AI-driven era, creativity is the key differentiator. Machines may excel at productivity, but human creativity and innovation remains unmatched. And people are most creative when they are engaged and doing interesting things. Our program ensures that students not only grasp essential strategies and methodologies, but also discover and nurture their passion. So by combining systematic learning with personal explorations, we empower students to tackle projects with the perfect methodologies, creativity, and a winning mindset. So this doesn't just give them a competitive edge among their peers, it also prepares them to strive competing with AI. So allow me to pass the mic to Dr. Xtatic, who will introduce the curriculum and share more details about this program.
All right, thanks, Leo. Hello, everyone. My name is Xtatic. I'm a lead research software engineer with two experiences in academic and industrial domains. I have a different and diverse knowledge in almost like 2 projects across the Department of Defense and Department of Energy, mostly specialized in AI, cloud, and distributed computing. What I like, honestly, focusing on real world problems like COVID-19 and climate effects and so on, and some of the other challenging projects. Otherwise, it would be boring for me. Next slide, please. So first of all, let's start by talking about AI matters. But first, let's take one step back and know what is AI. So for all of us, honestly, and end users, that we call them, or basically the new generation, AI understanding is basically the tools that actually they interact with every day. So people who actually use ChatGPT, or basically tools that generate some images for them, all these basic tools. But AI actually goes way beyond that. AI is actually goes into our different aspects of our lives. Whether we like it or not is part of it at the moment. For example, it actually can design our medications for us. It can actually also help us to drive our car, as you can see in Tesla and so on. So AI actually in different aspects of our lives. But the understanding here is basically what we see from the AI is mostly from the industrial part. But there is different level of AI that actually coming from the academic part. And in our understanding here, AI stands on 2 fundamental aspects. One is the academic perspective, and the second in the industry perspective. And definitely, if we take a look, academic perspective came before the industry part. Why? There's a lot of research that's been going on for the last, I would say, like 70 years or 80 years about AI. AI is not something new. It started from academia. A lot of professors spent their whole life, in addition to PhD students and PhD supervisors, in order to basically develop what we know at the moment, AI. But that actual AI led to papers, to a research, and all translated into what we know, services that basically exposed to us through the industry. So we can see OpenAI right now, ChatGPT, we can see Google image generation, and so on and so on. That actually led, when we exposed the AI to the industry, led to what we call it the high demand in terms of like jobs that required AI skills and capabilities. So the idea here is basically we cannot just take the industrial part of AI and ignore the academic, because the academic is the fundamental as we believe on. Next slide, please. So I think we shared a slide before a minute ago that basically shows the computer science jobs and the trend of it. But what we'd like to say, the devil in the details, right? So if we zoom in and we take a closer look at the tech market at the moment, by the way, which is 2024, 2025, we can see that by definitely the artificial intelligence jobs and machine learning jobs are the highest in demand right now. And this is something we cannot argue about. But this is not what we want to talk about at the moment. What we're going to talk about is the other jobs that actually start surging down in terms of demand. And here we see that basically, for example, people from computer science who actually know some skills in terms of developing applications, web application or whatsoever, is becoming to be less demandable. Now, what that tells us from the first understanding is that these jobs are actually transitioning into becoming a basic knowledge or basic standards for more advanced jobs like machine learning or artificial intelligence. That tells us basically in the market at the moment, the bar, the acceptance bar is actually going way higher than we expected before. And this, what we call it also is, we name it the golden age of the AI. It's like imagining yourself in the 60s and the 70s when the computers started being introduced, and all the people actually were afraid of it. But then suddenly all the jobs start asking for computer skills. This is very important at the moment to take what we call it ride the wave and also take advantage of this. So, and in conclusion, in order to basically land in a good job. So here, actually, what we think about computers, Python and computer science are definitely in demand. We're not saying this is not something like required, but also it's going to be basic skills for jobs like machine learning and artificial intelligence. Next slide, please. Thank you. So let's talk about empowerment, like empowering the next generation of AI innovators. And by the way, most of you guys is the next generation that we're talking about at the moment. First of all, if we look at the courses that exist online, we see that they all share the AI concepts. They all give the same understanding of, you go through the fundamentals of AI, you understand AI, and you start developing your own projects. But why this course is different compared to other online courses, and that's the key aspect here why we're actually proposing this. Most of the actual online courses, by the way, I'm including also Google as well, because they have online free courses. They're paid, they're not paid, and so on. They're missing what we call the academic part. What they want, where they jump in immediately, is that they jump into the basically the practical part. They're going to start teaching all how you basically deal with the data, how you actually process the data, and how you're actually building your own models, and so on. But at that time, there's different levels of students who actually join these classes, and some actually lack the fundamental of basically even how to do I understand the problem, how do I tackle the problem, how do I solve the problem. These what we call the basic standards of academia that actually most of the students who actually goes to these boot camps or actually online tutorials, they lack this part. So that's why it make it different for us here. What we call it here is a transformative experience. And let me explain what transformative means. We mean actually 4 weeks for the students who actually going to go through different phases of learning, starting from understanding how they're going to actually work on their problem, how they're going to actually understand the problem, do the hypothesis, the conclusion, and then solve the problem by applying what they learned. So this actually is a unique experience they're going to go through it, that we ensure at the end of the course, people or students will have actually a unique experience that shaped towards fully understanding what AI is, how you apply AI, but also the academic understanding of basically how to tackle such problems. The idea here is that, again, I said it, is combine the academic part with the real world industry practices. This is a course that focusing on actually leveraging whatever the students have in terms of skills. And there is a minimum requirement for any class that you want to go in, by the way. And here, what we're talking about, basic skills of Python, but also basic skills of math, because most of the AI courses, unfortunately, and fortunately also, their basis is actually on math. So without math, it's like you're lacking the fundamental part of machine learning. So we're going to leverage these existing skills in our students here. And we believe that basically most of our students have the capabilities to learn Python in a short-term period, but also being actually applied to different aspects. And we're going to take that experience and basically shape it and apply it into real-world applications. So by that, we mean the student will be able to engage in coding exercises, by the way, during this course. They're going to do group discussions. They're going to go into real world projects and basically solidify their practical skills. This actually what we call it also is somehow of peer pressure. It's not like the online courses where you go and you sit behind a computer and you just apply whatever you were learning in the course and call it a day. No, this actually will give you the opportunity to interact with a lot of people actually from the same age and from the same grade, but also have different knowledge, create some peer pressure and motivation for you in order to basically be better and be advanced in what you're doing at the moment. Next slide, please. Okay, so the overview of the course here, and then we call it, by the way, the structured learn approach, is that we go through, again, 4 weeks of transformative learning. We start, for example, by week 1, and the first 2 weeks, by the way, as you can see here, they're virtual, and the last 2 weeks is going to be the most enjoyable experience, I believe. It's basically in person. So the first 2 weeks are mainly virtual, starting by introducing what is AI, because again, AI is a deep field. We got to introduce what is AI in the beginning, give like some aspect about the history of AI, and then we move on into basically how the type of data, the way you actually apply the understanding of the data, and then the machine learning aspects. And from on, we give them the knowledge of the academia, which basically how you start understanding the problem, how you actually try to apply develop the hypothesis on the problem, and then apply whatever you learned into the next projects that you're going to actually be involved in the week 2 and week 3. For week 2, we're going to start ramping up a little bit, and we're going to start introducing more complicated aspects of machine learnings, such as the neural network, deep learning, and so on. I will go in details, by the way, for the course schedule in a minute, but I'm just giving high level here. And then for week 3, assuming that we accumulated this knowledge in the first 2 weeks, we are going to go, I would say the real job here is basically students will start apply whatever they learned in a real world projects. For example, here we show that basically we are targeting a very innovative, a very cutting edge technology of disease detecting. Students will start actually using a real world open source data sets in order to analyze it, build models to analyze these data sets, say this is a disease or not, and we're going to go into these details in a minute as well. And basically move on to the 4th week, which is also going to be again in person, but we're going to introduce what everyone is hyped about, by the way, which is the generative AI. And by that, I mean like chat GPTs and so on. This is what everyone want to learn. This is what everyone want to get interacting with. So basically, we got to introduce how these things works. We're going to introduce how we can actually build something like that, but also how we can actually fine tune them. And by the way, I'm using the term, the scientific term, fine tune, which basically how we can reshape the goal of this GPT into basically something more specific. And here we're targeting actually the medical part. So, and the last part is going to be in a final project that combines whatever they learned, and they're going to apply it on a real data sets. So this is basically the high level of the curriculum. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So we focus on here is called the 3 I's, what I want to call it: intensive, interactive, and inspiring. Intensive, this is something definitely gonna be, because this is a unique experience. You gotta be focused, but unfortunately, you're gonna be in terms of like long studying hours per day. So here we're gonna have 12 hours daily schedule. We're gonna offer a blend of lectures. We're gonna offer hand-on codings and definitely group discussions, projects that basically focus on intensive schedules to ensure students gain a deep understanding of the AI concepts. Definitely, they're going to be assignments every day. This is something what we call reinforcement learning. So what we do is basically after finishing the entire day, I know it's going to be a hard day, but it's actually we're going to enforce an assignment. We're gonna test and measure if the student actually did understand the concept, the fundamentals, and the more advanced topics. Collaborations, it's going to be actually by putting the teams into groups who can basically compete against each other. There's actually creating some kind of like a motivation for students to do better. And then we're gonna basically assess each project by itself individually, but also we're gonna do it in collaboration in front of each other. What is the outcome? This is something fundamental, honestly. The outcome is that the student, beside getting the confidence and the skills, tackling real world, that's something absolutely going to be there, and it's going to be also in a lot of online courses. But what is the catch here? There's something new here when we're introducing, is that students will actually getting to introduce to the leaders from the tech and leaders from academia. We have judges actually going to judge the students' work, from example Meta, from AWS, Amazon specifically, and also people from Europe and from Princeton universities and academia specifically. So again, this is a unique experience that we're talking about here. In terms of the details of the course, I can give a high level detail, because again, the course is expensive. If I'm gonna just start mentioning everything, it'll take literally like an hour or so to finish the entire course. But just a high level of what's gonna happen, we're gonna start by introducing what is AI, definitely giving an understanding, a high level understanding of the history of AI. Then we're gonna go through the level of setting the machines for the students. This experience all going to be on a cloud machines, by the way. So students, all the required for them is to bring their own computers, and assuming the internet going to be provided there, all they need to do is to connect it to the cloud machines, and then we guide them through the whole entire setup. They're going to set up their informations, the environment that actually they're going to use in order to run these applications, build their own codes, and so on. And then by the end of for example, week 1, they're going to start to understand what is supervised learning versus unsupervised, linear regression, classification, and so on. These are the basic and the fundamentals for any AI course. And then we move on into start analyzing some data sets, understand what are data set types, how you can fit the perfect pattern on these these data, and so on. Then we move on to actually what we call it, how they actually going to start managing their data. They do training and testing and cross-validation and so on. So there's a lot of detail. For week 2, we're going to talk actually mostly about more advanced topics. As I mentioned before, we start about neural networks. We're going to talk how to build your basic neural network, and basically what is the standard of neural network, how you build it, each component, and how you train it, and how basically you get it fine-tune it to gain a better results. Then we're going to start moving into basically what we call it the more deep convolutional neural network, recurrent neural network, and so on. Then in the week number 3, we're going to start focusing on computer vision. And here and that, we're going to start manipulating some real world open source data sets that basically students can use and actually can apply the problem on that. So for example, students going to actually build their own models to analyze such data sets and actually extract certain informations from them, analyze these informations, and then basically get a conclusion about that. For the last part of basically what we call a generative AI, which honestly I like it the best here, we're gonna start talking about how to, what is the generative AI, and also step behind, what is the natural language processing, and basically how can we build such a model, and basically what information we can take from, but also what we gonna fine tune in order to achieve the goal that we want. So, and by the end of the day, by the end of the entire 4 weeks, we're gonna dedicate an entire day for the final project. The final project is gonna be exposed to the students in the first day, because it's dedicated for the entire course. Are we gonna tell them you are going to work towards that goal? The entire knowledge that you're going to gain from this course is going to be concluded in that project, and you're going to be judged on that project. Now, the outcome also from that project, if someone is doing well, because we're going to classify all the students in groups, if someone is doing well, there is a high chance that the best group who did actually their best and got the best results will move with us freely to the next, advanced bootcamp. So this is a high level understanding of the course. Definitely there is way more details about that. Besides that, I'm happy to take any questions from the audience. Leo, thank you so much again. I hope it didn't take too much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Xtatic, for outlining the curriculum with greater details. So let's talk about the outcome we aim to achieve throughout the entire program. So by the end of this bootcamp, students will learn how to conduct authentic and effective research guided by the top experts in the field. They will tackle challenging projects and take home a complete product that they can continue to iterate and building up on, acquiring new skills along the way. Also, our program will introduce computer science to our students in a way that builds confidence and spark a deeper interest, setting them apart from their peers. And also, the most productive attendees will receive letters of recommendations from renowned professors, providing a significant edge in their application. Also, outstanding groups and students will have the chance to collaborate with our professors on real-world projects, gaining hands-on experiences and mentorships. Also, they will be invited to join our future bootcamps of the volunteer team leaders, gaining volunteer and leadership experiences. Students will also build lasting connections with like-minded peers and also gain access to the Xtatic computer science community, where they can receive ongoing support from the same TAs, instructors, and professors for their future projects. So we believe these outcomes will not only help students secure their admission to their dream schools, but also equip them with the skills and confidence to launch any project in the future. So this camp is structured as a 2-week virtual program followed by a 2-week on-site experience from June 16th, 2025, all the way to July 14th. The cost is $59.99, which include comprehensive in-campus coverage, including housing, food, medical and travel insurance, 24/7 support from Xtatic. We also provide complimentary airport pickup and drop-off at the EWR airports because we do not cover any flights. So in order to apply, we will need to see your resume and the cover letter. Then you will have to complete an online assessment. This will help us to evaluate your skill and readiness and also compatibility with our program. In the end, we're going to schedule a 15 minutes technical interview with you to better understand your insights about technology and assess your soft skills. So after 3 days of the interview, we will announce the final decision. So we encourage everybody to apply as long as you know Python, because computer science now is becoming increasingly vital in all aspects of daily lives. And also this bootcamp, not just providing a technical skills, but also providing an opportunity to gain solid foundation of problem solving. So our students can overcome any challenges in their future. Of course, we also have scholarships available based on case by case. So I strongly recommend you to sign up for this early registration to receive our free consultation session from Mr. Chen. Okay, now let's move on to the Q&A to start answering some questions. Let's start from the top. I think this question is for you, Harrison. My kid is in 7th grade, and what kind of diversity or creativity activity can she take?
Yeah, so I mean, diversity, I think girls in computer science and engineering is already on the rare side, but it's not just the fact that you are a girl in that space, it's what are you doing to support other women in that space? How do you get more women to join the computer science and engineering space? That's really what they're looking for. So that is a gender diversity option, right? We can look at diversity in a whole host of activities, but usually what this comes down to is, what are you willing to do? We have to do something that ultimately is going to be uncomfortable for you, where your friends probably won't be doing the same activity. What are you willing to commit yourself to? Boy Scouts, for a 7th grader, I think joining Boy Scouts could be a great choice as well, because there's not a lot of girls who are in Boy Scouts, and that will help you stand out. That's going to be another gender diversity option. You can also look at more ethnic, such as, I've had students who've gone abroad to do projects in other countries, community service work, things like that. That could be another way to get diversity. So a lot of ways we can do that. Creativity, I usually look at, preferably is probably going to be art, music, dance, you're doing some kind of like performing arts or physical arts. I usually prefer team-based activities whenever possible, just because a lot of people are great individually, especially a lot of these great top students I'm seeing, especially at the schools I'm at. They do individual things. I play tennis, I play badminton, I do swimming, things that don't require anybody else. Right? I can be successful on my own. I don't want to have to rely on a teammate. The problem with that is it shows me you don't work well with others as well. Right? You have to have some team-based activities in some of your activities. So I encourage you to try to do that through your creativity outlet.
Okay, thank you, Harrison. There's another one. It's talking about what does total points possible 1100 mean in the slides?
That was just if you added up all the different numbers. Like here's a total possible, so you can see percentage-wise how important each section was.
Okay. Amy, let me know if you need to check that slide again. I can go over to that slide if you want. Okay, move on. Same question from Amy. Are SAT and ACT viewed equally by top universities, or SAT is more preferred?
Generally speaking, they are equal. There are some exceptions. Generally, what I will say is if you are a good test taker, like your score is at the school average or higher, I recommend the SAT. If you are not a good test taker and your score is below average, first off, if it's a test optional school, don't submit it. If it is a test required school, then you would want to submit the ACT because it's a lot easier to sweep that under the rug. It doesn't cause as big of a problem for them if your score is not good.
Thank you, Harrison. I have 2 questions regarding the requirements for the bootcamp. So I just encourage you to register, and after registration, we'll be sending you the assessment. Based on the the result of your assessment will determine whether or not you are compatible or ready for the program. So we have 9 questions. If you can complete at least 3 questions, you are in a good shape. And if you can complete maybe 7 or 8 perfectly, I think you are on the top tier of this bootcamp. Okay, moving next. For volunteer hours, if the school only record 40 hours for high school years, how to indicate that you did more? Is there a self-reporting system?
Yeah, when you fill out the application, it's all 100% self-reported. If your school tracks or does not track hours, like my school doesn't track hours at all. So it's not like my guys don't get any credit. All the colleges, they don't trust anything on that transcript. They will all make you submit it separately. And jumping back up a bit, I know one of the early questions was, is the camp, I think, in person or online? I saw that question earlier. We want to do in person, by the way. And I know that's not always what the parents want to hear. They don't want to pay to send their kid, live in a hotel somewhere for a few weeks over the summer. But we need to show independence, right? The whole goal for college is you're not going to be living at home anymore. And colleges want to know that these kids could be successful on their own without mom and dad waking them up in the morning and dragging them to school. You have to have that self-motivation here, right? And I'm going to tell you that a lot of those schools, wherever you're based, statistically speaking, colleges know that you prefer to stay closer home. Parents prefer the kid to stay closer home. So if you're living in California and you're applying to Harvard on the East Coast, Harvard probably is not going to admit you because they don't think you're going to come. Even if you got in, you're probably going to pick Stanford over Harvard just because Stanford is closer to you, right? And Harvard knows this. And so they want to see demonstrated evidence that you have been able to pick up and move your life across the country, live on your own for some time. That will increase your chance of being selected, right? So this Princeton program's, particularly, I think, useful for those that are nowhere near the New Jersey, New York metro area, right? Because the further away you are, the more independence we're essentially showing by moving and doing this program.
Thank you. Moving next, how much Python is required? Again, it's so hard for us to tell what is the perfect skill level for the Python. So I just encourage you to take the assessment, making sure you can complete at least 3 questions. That's how we build up the assessments. And also we are going to do some technical interview to get a better understanding of how your complete assessments about the logics. Maybe Eamon can add your input to that, the design of the assessments, and how should our students to better prepare for that?
Yes, that's actually a good question. Thank you. So in terms of Python requirements, we are seeking entry-level requirements. And what I mean by that is that the students should understand how they write a code in terms of what is the data structure of Python, and basically how they can actually build the logic of the code from the beginning to the top in order to basically achieve an output from that code. So this is the minimal requirements. We're not asking for something like complicated, but definitely what we want to see is that the student can actually apply that Python through the assessment. We want to see that actually a code that is working and that is actually producing an output. If they were able to answer the questions in that assessment, just like what Leo mentioned, we're going to move up to the next step, which basically going to be one-to-one like interview, which is not going to take that long, just to make sure that basically the student who actually applied to this assessment does hold that knowledge.
Thank you, Eamon. Just to add that, I think some students may feel it's challenging to answer the questions, but again, this bootcamp will start in June 2025, so which means they have 5 more months to get them prepared. So that is the skill level we are looking for through the assessments. And also, if you believe you can, say, tackle those questions throughout the 5 months gap before the start of the camp, I think you can also be part of that camp. Can we replay this presentation? Yes, this presentation is recorded and we will publish that to YouTube and share access to all the attendees today. What is the level of grades for 9 students is acceptable? I'm not sure like what level are we talking about. If we are talking about Python, please refer to the answer to the previous question. Are there any boot camps in the Bay Area or anywhere in California? Also, there's another question about near Orlando, Florida. So the reason why we pick New Jersey, Princeton University, because Princeton University is always the top research institution in the world. And also our instructors and the TAs and also the final judges for the final presentation are all gathered in New Jersey. They are working from NYC, Columbia University, Princeton University. So that's why we can only do one location, which is New Jersey at Princeton University. Is there a deadline to apply? So if you register today, we can count it as the application date. But the last day of registration is actually the end of January. So, but if you can complete the registration today, we will give you a free consultation session from Mr. Chen. And also, I think once you applied, we will be providing more details about how to access the assessments, as well as how we're going to conduct our technical interview. Any more questions? I know we had some access issue earlier for the Google form. I just reset that one. Okay, so that's a good question. So maybe Harris can correct me after my answer. So to boost college application is not just, oh, I have a certification that I complete this program by Xtatic, but instead I would say the outstanding student from the camp will receive recommendation letter from the professors. And also, so okay, let me go back. So our course has 4 weeks and we have 2 weeks in-person program. So throughout these 2 weeks, students are required to prepare a final presentation, which include everything they're gonna put in for the final project, including like computer vision, GPT. So they have to record everything and conclude that through a presentation. And we will invite a lot of judges, like well-known professors from Princeton University and other well-known universities, and also experts from industrials. So that judge will be evaluating the final presentation, and also the winning team will get recommendation letters from those well-known professors. So even though Xtatic program is not prestigious, but I think those professors, their signature and their recommendation is worth something. And also, we can provide continuous support from those exact same TAs, instructors, and professors throughout our computer science community via Xtatic platform. Yeah, so it's not just I complete this program with a certificate, that's not enough. I think the recommendation and maybe other opportunity to keep working with those professors will be more value added. Mr. Chen?
Yeah, so I'll jump in there and say, first off, there are a lot of programs that are out there, right? And I struggle to name more than, a couple dozen of them. Every college across the country hosts programs. I counted one year Stanford was hosting 27 programs at Stanford just one summer, right? And if you think there are 5,000 some colleges across the country, if they're all hosting like 20 programs, you're looking at 10,000 programs that are out there. So it really is less of a, well, not even 10,000, like 20,000, or sorry, 100,000. It's not really so much a program thing. It's not about how prestigious the program is. Normally, when we're looking at these things, we're looking for a couple factors. One of them, to the prestige point, is selectivity. How many people get admitted to the program? Do they have any standards, or do they take anyone with a pulse who's willing to hand them money, right? So the less selective your program is, and they can tell by the website, like, who's getting in. If there's like no criteria, like we accept everybody, then yeah, those programs are going to be a lot less valued. Programs that have more restrictions, like you got to do these assessments now, there's age restrictions, there's other restrictions. The more restrictions there are, chances are the more valued the program becomes, just because they know it's selective. They don't just take everybody. This is signaling at the end of the day, right? This is a psychology principle. You guys do this when you apply for a job, right? If you list on your resume that you went to Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, yeah, you're more likely to get a job interview because you're signaling to the employer that you worked harder to get to that point in order to graduate with a degree from top school, versus if you graduate from community college or, UC Merced or someplace like that. So you're signaling by getting into a more selective program. I think the other part is we're looking for, what are you learning? What are you doing? Right? There are new programs starting all the time. And just because I didn't hear of this program before doesn't automatically make it bad, right? What we're looking at is essentially, what are you doing? Is this better than some of the other options that are out there? Just because a program's existed longer doesn't necessarily make it better as well. So it's not just, how long it's been around, right? Realistically speaking, I'm just being straight up honest with everyone here. These programs are designed to make money, right? They make a ton of money for colleges. I know at Berkeley, when I was there, our summer program basically paid for like an entire division, like an entire program. Like they hired people whose only job was to run summer programs because it made so much money for the school, right? There's an entire division of people hired just to work on that. So it is a profit generating part of any school, any university, any program. And so, there really isn't a cheap, free, better nonprofit kind of version of this. Like that's not really something that any school is doing. The third area to kind of just be aware of is like, ultimately the schools that care the most about doing summer programs are the private schools. All the private universities will ask you in their essays, why do you want to come to my school? Why do you want to go to NYU? Why do you want to go to Boston, Chicago, any of these schools? They'll say, why do you want to come here? And the more that you've engaged with that school, if you said, hey, I spent my summer at Princeton, I worked with these Princeton professors, had an amazing experience. I love the way they teach, I love the way they work. My favorite coffee shop is just around the corner. Like that is going to help sell the fact that you're willing to pick up and move across the country and go to Princeton. And that's going to help sell like why they should pick you, right? Public schools, I'm going to tell you right now, I get a lot of kids out here in California, I'm based here, and they're like, oh, I want to do Cosmos. Cosmos is a very popular summer program run by the UC system, and they get tens of thousands of people applying. The problem is UCs, you can't say, hey, I loved UC Irvine so much. I did my Cosmos program there. It's great. Because now Berkeley, LA, San Diego, Santa Barbara is like, you have fun over there. We're not going to take you because you clearly don't want to come to our school. You want to go over to Irvine, right? So we can't really do programs at big like public schools. It's got to be a private school, and it's got to be someplace that you guys are interested in going to. Otherwise, it doesn't help if you're doing like a summer program at like Southern Methodist University in Texas if you have no interest in going to that school, right? So we need to kind of strategically think a little. You only have a few summers in high school, and you want to make sure you're really making the most of each of those.
Thank you, Harrison. I think the next question is also yours. Are AP courses taken outside the school considered for the college application?
Yeah, it depends where you take them. So if you are taking it at a fully accredited school, when you apply to college, you're going to list your UC transcript. In a separate area, you're going to list all the other schools you went to, such as UC Scout, BYU Online, community college, whatnot. And you would list the course as being taken at another school. Every school you apply from has a separate GPA. So you have a separate community college GPA, separate like UC Scout GPA, and so on like that. It doesn't transfer to your home high school GPA. So don't try to use that to bring up your school GPA. It's not going to do that in most cases. It does depend where you go to school. I will tell you, if you're in the Bay Area at more of the, nicer public schools, they will not accept any transfer credit. The schools that are more likely to take transfer credit is if you go to school kind of in the middle of nowhere, where they're like, hey, we don't have kids to offer this class. I can't offer it, but if you take it elsewhere, I'll give you credit for it. So those are really low performing schools typically. So if you go to schools like that, they're probably going to take the credit and that will affect your GPA, but for most other schools, it will not.
Okay, I think the second part of the question, well, extra AP courses increase the GPA?
Again, only if it's on your transcript, right? It'll affect the transcript that it's on. So, again, if you're taking that outside of school, it will not affect your school transcript.
All right. Is there any more question? I encourage you to take a picture of this early registration. If you can complete the Google form. Sorry, can you please explain about AP classes and exams? Does taking the exam help?
The AP class is designed to be an honors course. You're challenging yourself, you're pushing yourself academically. It shows me that you're working hard. That is what I care about the most. The AP exam is an international exam given on the same 2 weeks for everyone in the world. And the AP exam is really designed to show mastery and understanding of the topic. Like once you get a score, a 5 typically means that you understand it at an A level, 4 is a B, 3 is a C, and 2 and 1s are Ds and Fs and are not considered passing. So most colleges, and I say most, will give you credit for taking an AP exam that will help you graduate from college early. So for instance, when my roommate actually at Berkeley, when he went in his freshman year, about halfway through the year, he got a letter from the school saying, you have enough units to graduate. He had taken so many community college and AP classes, he could graduate in just 1 year at Berkeley. The problem was he didn't meet any of his major requirements. He didn't take all those upper divs, he didn't take all these things yet, but he had enough overall units to graduate. He still took 4 years to graduate, didn't help him graduate any faster. I did the same thing, but I basically took less classes. Sounds a little, counterproductive, but standard is to take 4 classes per semester. I did 3 classes per semester, but I used all my extra credits to count as the 4th class. So I was able to take fewer classes, focus on those, and do those a little bit better in order to get better grades as a way to, maximize the value of those credits. Bottom line is the AP exam helps you graduate from college. It saves you money. One class I took was AP physics. If I took physics in college, it would cost me about $6,000 to take it as a summer school class. It cost me $110, I think, for an AP, exam. So that's the trade-off. Do I want to pay for a $100 test, or do I want to pay $6,000 to take the class in college, right? So it saves you money, it helps you graduate faster, but when it comes to getting you into college, we don't really care that much domestically. If you're applying to international schools like the United Kingdom, they do care about it. They do like to see that. And if you are thinking more international, like Canada, Australia, UK, you might want to, take more tests, but really beyond 7, it still doesn't really make a difference, right? But don't just try to self-study again. Don't self-study tests. Self-studying tests is the greatest waste of human time possible for you in high school right now. Okay. At the end of the day, colleges don't want you to graduate faster, right? If I'm Princeton or I'm Harvard, I don't want you to leave faster. Every year you stay, you're paying me like $90,000 in tuition. I don't want you to leave. I want you to keep staying, paying me forever if I can, right? So the goal really is to, demonstrate your ability, that your understanding and mastery, that you're willing to put in the hard work, but not so much that we're trying to get out early. Don't AP classes have exams? Yeah, AP classes have exams. You can take the class typically without taking the test. I don't recommend it. You've already prepared for it. You should take the test. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to self-study the AP exam. I have a lot of students that are like, hey, I'm just going to go open a book, read it myself, and go sign up for the test and just take the test by myself. That's typically not as promising when it comes to admissions purposes. Again, it'll help you in many, many ways. There are tons of reasons why you should do that. But when it comes to getting into college, self-studying does not help.
Any more questions? Okay, I think that's it. That concludes today's seminar. Okay. Thank you, guys, and please enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank
Have
you.
a good one.
Bye.
Thank you.